Hello and welcome to Spirit Sherpa, the show that helps and encourages you on your journey to unlock your magic mojo. I'm Joshua Radewan, your co-host, here with always with Kelle Sparta, transformational shaman. And what else do you do, Kelle? 'Cause I
Spiritual
can't really
coach, spiritual business coach.
We were just talking about
We
how
were just talking about that.
I mean, like,
Josh hasn't had his coffee.
oh, I have actually. No, I've had a full cup, but I have not slept well for about 3 weeks. With all
Mm.
of coming out of that retrograde energy, a lot of deep subconscious patterns coming up through the subconscious and the night world and the sleeping dream. And so rest has been few and far between. I don't know how everything's been going for you. We were talking a little bit about everything beforehand.
Oh
So
God, yes. I've been sleeping fine, but the waking dream has been a pain in my ass. So we are having massive breakdown around my house. There's been a toilet intake valve for water that the hose burst and we ended up with water all over the floor. There was a pipe outside that broke off and started draining our 600-gallon reserve tank. We have an air conditioner that's not currently working. The guy has taken the motherboard, and I don't know what he's doing with it. He hasn't talked to us in 24 hours about it, so I have no idea. He just said, "Oh yeah, it looks like the motherboard." I'm like, and right? I'm still waiting for a response. And yesterday, Jeff went to flush the toilet, and the handle on the toilet broke off. It's just like, and we have, for some reason, they didn't properly waterproof underneath this house. And so the moisture wicks up. Everything in Panama is made out of cement block. And so the moisture wicks up through the ground and it pushes all the salts out of the cement block. And that pushes the paint off the wall. And so, like 4 days ago, I scraped all the paint off the bottom of the wall and I primered it with waterproof primer and I painted it, and one section's already popping off. And I'm like, it's been 4 freaking days. Are you kidding me? So yeah,
we're up leveling. And that's what I'm hearing through all this.
breakdown before breakthrough. Breakdown before breakthrough.
There's
That
there's
is
a
my mantra right now because I'm like, fucking A, if I have one more piece of breakdown, I swear to God. I yelled at the universe yesterday. I was like, enough. After the toilet handle broke off, I'm like, enough.
it's funny in our psychic mastery group. I had said something about a week back, and I was like, enough. And then I went back into like, why is this happening? And I think you and Kathy both called me. And so
Yep.
that firm enough has seemed to shift a little bit for me.
Yes.
Um,
But you can't go
you know,
back into it or else you pull it back. The enough doesn't work unless you let it go.
right. And I mean, just par for the course. I mean, I spent 10 days on the lake and I could not get into a restful, peaceful place. And that's usually my happy place, but it ended up being kind of what is a great lead in for this episode, which is ritualistic abuse and black magic
Yeah.
and
Let's
what
go.
the
You
after
had some,
effects.
yeah, you had some shit on that land. So, you know,
I, yeah, that is what created my awakening. I've actually been sitting with that a lot lately too. For me, I recently signed up to do another Cambo ceremony. Anybody who's not familiar with Cambo, it is a frog medicine from South America that is great in helping purge. The story behind that particular medicine is that there was a shaman or a tribe in South America that got very sick, and the shaman went into a trance state and was gifted with a way to help heal his tribe. And it was from this particular frog, and it is Sapo. El Sapito, I call him when he shows up. But it is a medicine that helps purge. For me doing the deep level work with you, at times I still have a lot in there. And that's kind of what this episode is about a little bit too.
yeah.
There's a lot of
So,
the subconscious stuff.
yeah, just to be clear, this is Josh's path. I do not recommend that people do things that cause them to throw up and fall down and are potentially poisonous like this is. Um so, be very careful if you decide to engage in something like this. Do your research and have an emergency system on standby in case you need it. But
Anybody that's serving this medicine will have a great questionnaire for you They will know your medical history, and they will have, for me, I'm very, very cautious in who I work with in any of the medicine fields. And this one is a non-psychedelic because I don't really do those. This is much different. So
Well, and we hope that they will have those things because there's no guarantee of anything.
if
So,
they don't, turn around and walk away.
yeah.
So
And even if they do, understand that there is an element of risk. So be careful. Anyway, we were talking about something else, which is yes.
well, that kind of fed in because I was working on my intentions for that ceremony, and being connected with that particular medicine um, has helped me to release a lot of subconscious patterns. And I'm also in the deeper level work of Wu Yu currently, which has been fantastic for releasing subconscious programming. But my dreamscape has been crazy lately. 3, 4 weeks of just nonstop. Doesn't matter if I ask for a night off at this point, it's just coming out. So sometimes that's part of it. But a lot of this is from, back in 2017. I got myself into a lot of trouble in the magical community. I guess I should open with this. I was an atheist in 2017. I came out of the school of George Carlin, didn't believe in magic. Of all things, I didn't believe in magic or the mysterious or the mystical or any of this, right? So I got myself into a place where I was hanging around with a lot of people that were satanic. Not judgmental here, like I'm not judging anybody's path. But I was hanging out with a lot of people that were definitely in the darker aspects of magic. And for that entire year of 2017, my life began to really tailspin, like very, very fast, right? Like all of a sudden, I began to see demons. My technology was very manipulated. This is when like when I talk about demonic possession, this is when this happened. It felt like a lot of these things. I haven't gone too deep back into the retrocognition of this, but either things were purposely attached to me or because of my light, I picked them up from just hanging out in these places. At this point, it doesn't really matter because it's done. But I've got like, so I spent a lot of years in victim after this. Like anybody who had been on the other side of possession or being bullied by anybody knows that there is a rebuilding process afterwards, right? Like, and it's major. And this is a childhood pattern for me too. Like this is, like I see the whole thing, right? Like this was just the cherry on top. This particular part of this incarnation was really taking a look at everything that was coming up from this lifetime and past lifetimes, early childhood. Like this was a pattern, and this is what I signed up for. So yay, hire me. Like so during this time though, like I began to see things when I was around those people, right? Like I began to see sigils I'd never seen before. People I would invite into my home were carving sigils into my tables. And like at the time, I didn't know anything any different. I was like, okay, like that's just that. But all of a sudden, more and more weird stuff started happening, and I couldn't, just shake it off as mere coincidence. And it actually drove me nuts. Like for me, my spiritual awakening was very rough because this is the way it happened. It didn't happen as I experienced oneness with the creator and it was all love. And I, like, no, it was like, I saw the devil and I saw the demons and I saw, you know, my reality getting manipulated on the external. It was so weird because I don't know if we talked about this in the last episode or it's just something I've been shooting in my mind the last few weeks. As timelines converge, it's really
Yeah.
hard for me this moment. But like the way it felt, right, is like we have attachments and it's kind of like someone's there, but they're not really pressing buttons, right? Full on possession is like someone's at the keyboard and manipulating your external reality through your neural pathways. And I had so many experiences that, I mean, it was like my whole outside world shifted to this whole alternative fear-based universe. And it was for a year. And this is the stuff I'm still working out of my nervous system, like, and I'm so grateful for the dreams the last few weeks, right? Because they are telling me that this poison is moving on, right? But I asked for this. I asked for this.
Yeah.
So, it's been a beautiful process, but, I know a lot of people that go through this, like, we generally attract people, like once we've done certain lessons and integrated that into our vibration, we attract people who have gone through some of the same lessons. And, over the last year doing the, exorcism work, I have met people that have gone through the exact same thing, right? Like almost to a T. And that's why I wanted to talk about the ritualistic aspect of this because, you're an expert in ritual. You actually teach ritual. So
Go figure.
this is kind of the darker side of that, right? So there was what I noticed is, in 3 people that have come into my pathway is that all 3 of us had a very similar experience. And, at the same time, like I had, and we talked about this in one of the groups, is the destiny swapping thing kept coming up over and over and over and over again.
Do you want to
And
define that for the listeners?
well, it's yes. So there's a lot of different variations on it, but ultimately what they can do is tap into your Akashic, see your path, and then try to step into your path, right? It comes, like I mostly heard of it coming from like hoodoo and Santeria. I'm not saying that's exclusively where that is done, but most of that ritual I saw done there, but very basic most of the time, right? But there seems to be a depth to some of it, right? A deeper depth to people that really know what they're doing,
Mhm.
and
As
it's
is usually
different.
the case with
Yeah,
people who know what they're doing. Yes.
right, right. And this is once again, this is why I don't mess around with this type of magic because I'm also watching these people's lives implode right now. Because the message I got is sometimes we sign, it's like a mutual wake up agreement, right? Like you got in, thought this was going to be an easy mark, an easy target, and what you got was a shaman initiate.
Right.
Even if he didn't know shit, he had help on the other side.
Well, not only that, but so there's an energy. If you're going to try and step into somebody's destiny, you're going to step into their energetic. And your energetic is constant growth and evolution, constant shamanic death, right? And you can't step into the path without stepping into the energy, right? I just had this conversation yesterday with one of our people who have finished Welcome to the Woo, and it was saying, I just want some integration time before I do the next step. And I said, great, I highly support integration time. And here are the things that happen next on the path, which is what we address in Woo Squared. So when those start showing up is when you want to come back and re-enroll because it's much easier to do it with support than without because
Oh,
you've
absolutely.
stepped into the journey and you will be going on this path whether you want to or not. So the question is, do you want support along the way, right? Because the universe says, "Oh, you stepped in. Fantastic," right? And there's a energetic pathway that is associated with doing this work. And no matter how you step in, once you step in, there's no going back. There's actually a warning in my book that says, warning, do not read, well, it does say warning, do not read this book too fast or your head will explode because that's true. But actually, no, that was on the original book. My bad. The book that turned into the program that is not in the current book. But there's a warning at the beginning of the program that says, this is something that it's like learning how to read. You can refuse to read the signs the signposts, but you will never not know what they mean again. Right? You can't become illiterate again. Right? So once you do that, you're now committed to a different path because you've committed to stepping into the pathway. And so your journey will go. It'll go faster or slower depending upon how much you resist and how much you engage and what outside support you receive and where you let yourself go, right? But it'll happen one way or another. And it starts softly and then it works its way up until you get the clue by 4 to the forehead, right? Like we really encourage you to say yes when the soft one comes in, because the clue by 4 to the forehead could be anything from, oh, that really hurt, to, oh, I'm in the hospital. How did that happen? Right? That sort of thing.
Absolutely. And then the other thing that I picked up on, and it's very similar to what you just said, is that they have to be able to hold the energy of the trauma you suffered early in life to be able to hold the energy. And
Right.
good fucking luck without, well, I'm not saying that as a badge of honor. I'm just saying good fucking luck, holding that, right? And
So, and I want to say this though to that is that you're already holding it. All right. I just want to say that because if you're still here, you're already holding it.
yeah,
You may be shoving it aside, but you are in fact holding it. And this is one of the biggest resistances people have to getting into this work is that they're like, oh, I have to deal with all my shit all at once. And no, you don't have to deal with it all at once. You deal with it one section at a time, and you're already holding it. You think, oh, I can't do any more. It's like, well, no, you can't. And that's because you're already holding this massive amount of shit. How about we just take one piece off at a time and the burden gets lighter and lighter and lighter, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway,
Absolutely. I mean, and this episode is actually part of that. We were talking beforehand. I was like, I'm a little nervous about this one. Like, I don't usually talk about this for a multitude of reasons. First, I'm really in the process of letting go of the old stories, but I feel like this is something that can help other people who have been through something similar, right?
yes.
So I'm willing to put my own ego fear walls aside in order to tell people that you're not alone in going through this kind of thing. It is an absolutely real thing and a part of the society. And it's if it wasn't for this program, I'm not sure what the rebuilding process would have been like. I mean, like Kelle was an answer to my prayers. Like I literally was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. I can't make sense of any of this. And I feel ultimately energetically broken. I mean, I came into this work in the fetal position because that the after effects of what happened in 2017 really, really pushed through until 2021. So, and that's the other thing is, people go through this and it is a rebuilding process. I mean, I don't know too many people that just come back from it and they're like, oh, I don't have any trust issues. Everything's great. Because usually this happens with people that you trusted implicitly, for
Right.
better or worse. It is usually, and that's kind of par for the course in a lot of our life lessons, but this is a deeper level. I mean, and this work has led me back to trust. And like you talk about it all the time. If you don't trust yourself, you're implicitly telling the universe that you don't trust it,
Right.
or vice versa, right? So, but getting back to that place after being possessed and things going into the typewriter of your mind for a while, it's a process, right? And it does get into the subconscious, and that's where it gets trickier, and that's why I've been working with the Ho'oponopono so much lately, because I'm just working on washing it, right? I don't need to go in. Well, first, I don't, like I don't need to go in and look at all of that. I can just be like, I can see what's creating, and I can just go into the washing state for a while.
Right.
And that has been working. And I've been, pretty vigilant in that for 3 months. Cause once again, I was like, I know my subconscious is creating my reality and I'm tired of living the same fucking pattern. And,
Yes.
it's like a shitty Groundhog's Day. That does. I mean, but, so do you have any experience other, like, I know you've been around this around a long time and you know a lot of things. What's your take on that? On destiny swapping, on ritualistic abuse, on, people that, manipulates other people's reality in order to, ultimately, it's another form of energy vampirism, which is, super funny because our last energy vampire episode, she got some rave reviews and also had some technological difficulties. I know we're hitting the mark.
Yeah. So that's a big question, right? So is it possible to destiny swap with someone? Yeah, I mean anything is possible, right? We all create contracts, we all create our reality, and we all create that. But the problem is the same thing that I just mentioned before, which is that if you try to destiny swap with someone, you get all the shit that comes with it, right? And often, so there's an old parable about peddler who came to town, and the town was full of angst and upset, and everybody hated each other, and they were all upset and whatever. And the guy said, pay me what you would normally pay for a year's worth of, everything, right? And I will fix your town. And they were like, well, we're not paying you until you fix it. And he's like, that's fine. And so they said, okay. And he went and he had every person write down everything that was going on in their lives and what was true for them. And he had them tack it to the oak tree in the center of town. And he then said, everyone go and read everything. And then you can pick somebody else's problems instead of your own, if you'd like. And every single person to a person picked their own thing back up again. Because the devil, right? But at the same time, they became aware of everything everyone else was going through and developed empathy, and suddenly nobody was angry anymore. Okay? So we tend to want to pick our own stuff back up because we know how to deal with that, right? So destiny swapping, can it happen? Yes. It is not what you signed up for, right? And therefore, it could probably be more problematic than just dealing with your own shit, right? It's almost certainly going to be more problematic than dealing with your own shit, especially because you usually only want a destiny swap with somebody who's further along the path than you. And what you don't realize is that is because they did all this work before you. So all of that work will be amplified in you in order to get you to the place where you could destiny swap with them, and it probably will melt you the fuck down, right? So it's a problem, right? So that's number one. Ritual abuse. And you had something you wanted to say on the number one?
No, I mean, like that makes a lot of sense, and that's what I see, like for me, people that are going to try to do that aren't people that are generally going to want to feel the things that you feel when you get faced with your own. So for me, I mean, like this whole awakening was me taking a look at myself and seeing all of the hurt and the pain that I caused. So good fucking luck dealing with that. Like because it's going to be amplified because of the things you're doing to people already, like willingly.
Yes, and because of the fact that you haven't been doing the work before that, right?
And when you do that work, you're going to realize you don't want to do this type of work anymore and just hand destiny back on a silver platter.
So, here's the thing. And I want to say, because, you're in the midst of your shit right now. And so I want to clarify this for everybody. There are the further you get in this work, I don't want to say the less intense, but so when you first start, it's probably the hardest because you've got so much resistance built up and you've got so much upset built up and you've got so much belief that you can't handle it built up. As you get further into the process, you may be dealing with darker, deeper, more problematic things, but you have a history built of your ability to deal with them. And you have a trust in yourself and a trust in the universe that has been built over time from having done the earlier work. And so when Josh says good fucking luck, he doesn't mean that, where he's at, good fucking luck, he's going to get through it. That's not what he means. What he means is if you come in not having built those foundations, good fucking luck, right?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
those foundations are entirely necessary to do this level of work. And so, that's the other piece of the destiny swapping stuff, right? Now, ritual abuse, I have heard, oh my God, so many cases of ritual abuse over the years. I know people who had been abused in childhood by satanic cults and things like that. You hear of religious abuse, which is its own thing. That is abuse as well, and ritual abuse as well, because it's being done within a sacred container and it's being done by someone who is an authority in that sacred container, and therefore it's a problem, right? And so, the ritual abuse, I think the biggest reason why it's so impactful. So there's several levels of impact that happens as a result of the religious or the ritual trauma, right? Is that one, it is, it's energetically damaging, right? Because things are attached to you, things are implanted in you, whatever, right? And all of that is done non-consensually. And therefore, it activates the victim energy. And it's disempowering because it's done to you, right? But it's also done for you if you've opted into this environment, right?
There's a blessing in
So,
that lesson. Yes.
right.
I
Yes.
wouldn't be here if that didn't happen. And in my intentions, I wrote, thank you, you know, thank you for, bringing me to this path. I really do mean that. I mean, had I not had that wake up call, for better or worse, this is what led me to the path and this far into this work where I've been able to reach back and help a lot of people too. So there is definitely a blessing in the middle of that shitstorm of a lesson.
Yeah. Well, every coach, every spiritual teacher, every shaman, anybody on this path that I know has had some sense of trauma, some trauma that they had to overcome. And that's that whole thing of, unless you've experienced it, you don't have any way to help someone else with it, right? And so, that's sort of the entry ticket into this work is having trauma, right? And so the yes, it's for you, but it's also, there's a lot to get over with it, right? And so there's that, but it's also, because it's done in a ritual environment, it is problematic in the fact that it comes in through archetypal processes. And so that's at an unconscious level, that work. It's not subconscious, it's unconscious. It's the collective unconscious that you're tapping into when you do ritual work and you use archetypes. And so the problem is that it is unconscious. And so it takes a long time to sort of find those pieces. That's why here you are, you've been working with me for 4 years off and on. I think we're coming up on 5 soon. And you're just getting into this because you got to work through all the conscious stuff before, and then the subconscious stuff, and then you can get to the unconscious stuff, right? So it's a process to get it undone, and that's why it's done in that way, is because it's a very effective way to get past all of the conscious things. And this is one of the warnings that I have, because I've had clients who have had this experience where they have had things done to them. So I had somebody who had an entity stitched into a tattoo. I have somebody who had, been brought into rituals that they didn't understand and therefore ended up in really bad situations, right? Every time you have somebody who is going into a space where they are not conscious of what the situation is, you have an opportunity for ritual abuse, right? And working with the Satanists, I can absolutely see, because I know Satanists as well, and there's a specific belief structure involved in that. And if you were an atheist hanging out with Satanists, you were literally asking to be the target of something, because you didn't respect what they were doing because you didn't believe in it. And you can't have full respect for something that you absolutely don't believe in, right? And so there's this place where they would look at that and say, "Oh, well, Satan Lucifer sent you to me, right? And had you come and be available for the ritual I needed, right? You are the ritual sacrifice that was delivered to us, right?" And that would be a completely, within their construct, a completely reasonable concept. And so, when you're looking at this, and it depends on the Satanists. So let me be clear, because so there's Satanists and then there are followers of Lucifer, and those are different people. So Satanists are generally, about manipulation and control, and followers of Lucifer are about empowerment and individuation and that. So it's very different energies, right? Um, So I want to be clear that I'm not like lumping them together. I do know the difference. So if you're out there listening, I do know the difference. Okay. And then so when that happens, so can things be done? Yes, things can be done to you in ritual environments. There are ways to transfer life force from one person to another. If that's the path you go down. You want to talk black magic. That's some serious black magic, right? And there are people who have been known to do that in order to live longer. And that's if you want to learn more about that, read The Sea Priestess, right? By Dion Fortune, right? It's quote unquote fiction, but sure. And if you know that she was part of the Golden Dawn, that gives you a little bit more pause about fiction, right? But these are things. Anyway, the when you're dealing with something that you do not understand, you had better be sure that you trust whoever it is who brought you into it, or whoever it is who's running it, or both, right? Do not do rituals that you don't know what they're for. Every ritual is for something. Okay? I'm going to say that again. Every ritual is for something. Don't do it because it would be fun, because it would be novel, because it would be, interesting, or, oh, I'm just going to observe. There are no observers in ritual. Let's be clear. If you're there, you're part of the energy. That's how it is. There are, if you have permission to be an observer on the outside of the circle, then you can observe. If you are in the circle, you are part of the magic. So if you are inside or in the line of the circle itself, you are in the ritual. Please be aware of that. And so, don't do things that you don't know what they mean, because people can manipulate that and use you for various and sundry purposes. And, it can be problematic. They can dedicate you to things that you may not want to be dedicated to. They can use your energy in ways that you might not have chosen to use your energy in, that sort of thing. I was at a ritual that was turned into a ritual abuse situation for everyone who was in it. And I've told that story before, but I want to say it again, which is Pagan Pride Day 2011 in Boston. And well, not technically Boston. I don't remember exactly where, but Boston area. And there was a big circle, 200 people. And I just somehow did not want to be part of the circle at that time, which I had done before, but I was like, don't want to be. And I stood outside of the circle, and somebody gave, it was right after 9/11. I think it was like October 10th or something. And somebody gave the center of the circle ability to someone who was very angry, and they decided to use the energy of the circle to do retribution on the people who had caused the attacks of 9/11. And I was like, not on my watch. Under no circumstances will that be happening. And so as I'm outside, I'm sitting there, I'm pulling the energy out of the air and grounding it. I was like, right? And evidently there were 5 other women who had done the same thing. They didn't know why they didn't want to be there, but they had spaced themselves perfectly evenly around the circle with me. And we were all sitting there going, not on my watch, and we're just grounding it out, And can 5 people ground out the energy of 200? Oh, hell yes, we can, especially when the 200 are not willing, because they weren't. They were very upset. They weren't willing, but they had lent their energy to the container, and the focus of the container had been handed to this person, and she was using it for what she wanted. And they didn't know how to break the circle, which would, in that case, just simply have been let go. Everybody was holding hands, just let go and walk away. And that would have broken the circle, but they didn't. They were good little doobies, and they didn't want to break the circle because that's what you do. And it's like, no, if somebody's using your energy for something you don't want to use for, break the fucking circle and walk away, right? But, they were unwilling participants, and therefore they were already pulling their energy back, and we were rounding out the rest of it. And so, yes, it can be done, but that was ritual abuse. All those people who were in that circle were being abused. And through social construct, social agreement of we don't break the circle, they were stuck because they would not break the social agreement to break out of their energy being used for what they didn't want it used for. And so this is the other thing you have to be aware of if you're in something like this, is you have to be willing to break the rules to break out of the energy being, your energy being usurped for other purposes, stolen from you, right? So, yeah.
And we worked a lot on that with me. Like for me, the lessons have showed up through other entities that come in to give me a deeper knowledge afterwards of how that works. Like, as a former addict, a couple months ago, if you remember, I had given permission for this certain entity to be in there. And I was like, I don't understand why it won't go away. I mean, I can feel it. It's like, oh, wait, this button doesn't work anymore. This button doesn't work anymore. This button doesn't work anymore. I was like, yeah, I feel you there. And I'm not really sure why you're not leaving. But it's that same thing. I had given permission to it a long time ago and never just revoked my permission.
Right.
Right. And that's been a part of this as well, because you really, there's so much power in not just agreeing with naivety to things that you are about to take part in. Because I did that all the fucking time. Right. Like, I was an easy target because I was a fucking people pleaser. So on a universal level, this made me very susceptible to this type of abuse because I was just, okay, I'm very meek at the time. Okay. Now I'm like, get the fuck away from me. Like the energy feels off. And I mean, I really done a lot of work around that. But, I really recommend people not putting themselves into these positions. I know that magic is fun and magic, like but I rarely use it because of these things, right? Because I know how powerful it is because I've witnessed it firsthand. And that's why, I'm so grateful that I got to meet you, who teaches extensively about the ethics of what we do. And God, I'm going to tell you, I have seen these people's lives take a turn for the terrible because you finally walk up against somebody that has some juice on the other side and karma comes calling, right? Like, like there is karma, whether you're paying for it in this life, the next life, it comes. And that's why I'm so grateful to walk on the side of the white with a shade of gray once in a while. But it's really been one of my life's greatest blessings to go through this. And at the same time, extremely debilitating. But, that's the depth of the work, right? Because of all of that, I can connect with such a wide array of people because so much shit happened within that container, right? So because of that, like I have this gift to connect with a lot of different people going through a lot of different things because, these things hit on all of your weak spots, every single one. And luckily,
Absolutely.
Kelly's built programs that hit on every single of those weak spots and releasing the fear and the anger and the shame and the guilt and the worry and the dread, and these are the things, these are the ends, right? It's hard to claim your sovereignty and be at a high vibration when these are the things that they're drawing on you. But that is the beginning of that process is, beginning to work on those triggers or identify them.
The reason those things are in the program is because I had to deal with things that associated with that. So, the program is just a reflection of my journey, right? So, it's like, oh, yeah, this happened. Yeah, this is how I fixed it. Okay, this happened. This is how I fixed it, and it's just, that. But yes, there are a wide variety of things. And we're starting to talk at a deeper level now, right? And I want to be clear. I don't know if I've said this out loud, but I had to say this to somebody the other day, so I'm going to say it again. People have asked me for instruction on demonology on the podcast, and that's not going to happen. It is too dangerous to have you learn about it without supervision, and I won't do that. So if you want to learn about demonology, I do teach it, but it's in the program. And that's not me gatekeeping, that's me safekeeping, right? So there's a difference. There are things that I can responsibly put out. And I think by now, after 8 years, I think you guys know that if I can responsibly put it out, I will. But anything beyond that, I need to put in a program because I need to supervise so that you don't end up in a bad space and with no support, with no safety, right? So, but this stuff, You know, I mean, demons are their own thing too, and pretty much everybody, once you get a certain path, a certain length along the path, once you get to a certain place, the demons show up. That's just the nature of the beast, and they show up to teach you how to master your fears.
It's
And
been interesting the last few months. That's been, you know, like I stepped into the exorcism part of this work, and after that, they, you know, like well, at first I figured out how I was fucking up, and they were attaching to me after every single one. Figured out the architecture behind that, but you know, after that, it was wow. I just drew a blank. That's so funny. That usually happens to you. I just drew a complete
the world.
oh, where would that never happens. That's so funny. Okay, so I remember now. You know, like
Okay.
they stopped being able to get me because of all of the protections you've taught me and the working through the weak spots and the triggers that they usually get in on. And they started speaking through people to me, which gave me another recognition. You know, like they'd hit on my psychological weak points, my social weak points, and so it's been a different game lately. But you know, once again, I honor them too. You know, like they taught me everything I know about fear and power. I mean, as far as from that side of things, you know, being able to hit on those weak spots. But it was actually the story you told me about the apprentice shaman that went into the forest one day, and like the elders are like, "This is your big day, good sir. You are going into the forest. You're going to be blessed by the good spirits." I've put my own spin on this.
I was going to say that sounds vaguely like what I told you, but yes.
Well, that's what we do. We speak in parables based on our own life. So they're like, they're gonna speak with you, and yeah, you know, like this is your big day. And he goes out, and it's the middle of the night, and the spirits and the demons, they come and they rip him to shreds, and he's just in all these little pieces. And in the morning, the sunlight comes, and the good spirits come out, his power animals, the woodland creatures. They put him all back together, and he goes back to the tribe, and he's like, "What the fuck, guys?" I'm really putting a spin on it now.
You really did,
Guys,
because you took it from talking to the spirits, which is what my story was, to talking to the people. So that's an interesting thing for you to learn.
yeah. So he goes back to the tribe, and the elders say, you know, you should be thankful for all of the spirits that ripped you apart last night. You now hold dominion over, and that's why, you know, when we heal through the work that we do, we can do what we do, and we can help others to find that power in themselves too. So
Yes.
I love putting my own spins on things. I'm
No,
like,
really? Yeah.
we all should do that.
I was going to say, I have no room to talk because I do that all the time. But, yeah, I'm sure that I don't tell the story the same way that my shaman told the story. So, you know, it's fine. This is how storytelling works in shamanism. So long as the essence of the story is consistent, which it is, we're good, right?
Well, that's good.
Yeah. So yeah. Anything else you wanted to say around the ritual abuse piece? I mean, you were pretty non-specific. Did you want to get more specific, or are you good to go?
I think, you know, like the way you explained it, I think if there's anything that I can say to people is, you're not crazy. You are not the only person who's been through this, and there are safe places for you to find community in order to get the help you need, right? For me, it was a combination of both therapy and working through the Welcome to the Woo program, and that was my rebuilding process. That is where I began to be able to unwind the stuff that was locked in the trust issues around all of this. So once again, you're not alone. You know, I'm coaching Welcome to the Woo now. So if this is something that you're experiencing, I have my doctorate in this shit, and I'm
Not officially, but energetically, yes.
energetically doctorate. Energetically, I have a doctorate in this specific modality, and you know, and I come from a place of love because I know what it's like to go through this, and I know the process is a little bit different than what other people go through. So you get a lot of care, a lot of compassion, and the lessons you need based on Kelle's life experience. Because, like I said, when I prayed about this, it was Kelle's podcast. It just showed up on Spotify. So you're ready to take that jump on here.
And now your life experience too, right? Because you've
Absolutely.
done some stuff too that I haven't even done. So, you know, there's that combination. So it's powerful. All right, folks. Well, remember, please, to like, subscribe, and share. We are really trying to grow our visibility on YouTube, and it would be really helpful if you would be willing to like, subscribe, and share, because that would help us to get the message out to more people. It is becoming more and more necessary every single day, especially what's going on in the U.S. right now. That people learn how to stand in their power and stand up and set boundaries and say no and do all the things, right? So if you are feeling motivated in that direction, then our podcast is a great way to share the message in a non-political fashion. Oh, I would really appreciate that. And thank you so much for listening. If you made it this far, you're among the very rare people, because most people stop listening after I say, that's it for today. And they don't listen to the end. So thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate you. If you have any questions, please send them in. That's where we get a lot of our ideas for episodes. So we would really love that. We'd love to answer questions. And we'll talk to you next time. And oh, right. Remember, what you focus on expands. What you intend is what you create. So choose wisely. Yeah, I knew that. It's okay.
It's okay.